I didn't lose. I got the votes, but we won't know exactly how many because of how they cheated.
I did win my election. I just didn't get to have the job.
We were robbed of an election.
Just using the word rigged, using the word steal, do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because
well, I do remember the time you told the New York Times, I won. You did describe it as a stolen election. The courts did side with the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and some of the challenges as well.
Caitlin, that's actually incorrect. And normally I wouldn't cut you off, but you're repeating disinformation. What the court said, if you read the entire opinion, was that despite the flaws in the process that we acknowledge, that the courts acknowledged, they were no longer permitted to complete and fix them. They could not correct the mistakes because the law had changed between 2018 and 2022 when the case was finally adjudicated. There was never a moment where they said what happened was right. What they said was there was no capacity to correct the mistakes. And so it's important that we not only use the headlines, but we read the fine print, because that's where the mistakes are made. That's where the challenges are. I believed then, and I believe now, I have never been the governor of Georgia. I have never claimed to be the governor of Georgia. What I have said is that voters were denied their full rights. Courts agreed with me in the time of that election. They agreed with me post-election. The state made changes to the flaws, some of them. Unfortunately, too many of them have been restored in different ways, and we continue to face voter suppression, not only in Georgia, but around the country, because Republicans are using the ability to change the laws because we no longer have the protection of the Voting Rights Act to make it harder for average voters to show up at the polls and have their votes counted. That should be that should be where our focus is. That should be where our attention is. And anyone who tries to distract us from that is not doing the work of protecting democracy in America.
And I take your point that obviously you did not agree with the laws that were in place. You didn't like the new ones that Governor Kemp signed. And we do read past the headlines and the fine print. And one of them, the court said that although Georgia's election system is not perfect, the challenged practices violate neither the Constitution nor the Voting Rights Act. And so I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to that, given it is something we've heard from Senator Ted Cruz and others on this show. Stacey Abrams, thank you for your time tonight.
Stacey Abrams is an election denier. Film at 11. And this whole idea, you got anybody here old enough to remember when being called an election denier got you kicked off Twitter, got you kicked off Facebook, got you kicked off Instagram, got you kicked off TikTok, got you kicked off social media, got you banned in a lot of places being an election denier. Remember that? Unless you are a Democrat, unless you are a leftist. So Stacey Abrams is still out there saying that there were some discrepancies in the 2018 gubernatorial election in Georgia, which brings Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger out to call her out during her recent interview with CNN, where she claimed the host, Caitlin Collins, was spreading disinformation about her. Here's what Collins says. Collins says, "Well, I do remember a time when you told the New York Times I won. You did describe it as a stolen election," Collins told Abrams. Well, Stacey wasn't having that. He said, no. That was incorrect. I've never been the governor of Georgia. Well, that's true. I've never claimed to be the governor of Georgia. What I have said is that the voters were denied their full rights. Courts agreed with me at the time of that election. They agreed with me post-election. They made changes to the laws. Some of them, unfortunately, too many of them have been restored in, quote, different ways. And we continue to face voter suppression not only in Georgia but around the country because Republicans are using the ability to change the laws because we no longer have the protection of the Voting Rights Act to make it harder for the average voter to show up at the polls and vote counted. That should be where our focus is. This is what they do, this gaslighting and this lying. So Secretary of State of Georgia says this: "In my time in office, I have spent a lot of time holding failed candidates like Stacey Abrams accountable to Georgia voters. The latest comments from Stacey Abrams shows that she still cannot accept the fact that she lost in 2018, and the fact that she still still can't accept that means that she has no business going on TV talking about defending democracy. The fact is that she lost fair and square under the established rules of the game. She even spent $50 million of her donors' money to try to show that the rules were unfair to her, but she completely lost on all of her claims. She lost not only because of, technicality, like she's trying to claim now, but because after getting millions of documents and conducting hundreds of depositions, the evidence did not support her claims. She had every chance to prove her claims of a systemic voter suppression, and she couldn't do it because her claims were nothing but cheap political talking points. She tried to wrap herself in flowery language about protecting the rights of the vote, but the fact is that she's just an election denier. She's just an election denier. She's just an election denier. She wants everyone to forget that her group continually referred to the 2018 election as a stolen election and referred to Governor Kemp as Governor Kemp for many months after he was legitimately elected and sworn in. But Abrams and Fair Fight did both of those things, and they should be ashamed. The only thing that she should be going on TV to say is that she lost the 2018 election fair and square, and that she apologizes for her post-election refusal to accept that fact. Stacey Abrams is an election denier. I thought the left would, condemn her for being an election denier. And she's trying to prove voter suppression. Let me help you. You cannot prove something didn't happen. It is impossible to prove that something didn't happen. It didn't happen. It obviously didn't happen. Stacey Abrams is an election denier. Shame on you, Stacey. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourselves. We'll see you when we see you. Bye now.